To measure the angle of which you can see Polaris, you can use some special devices. The first instrument used was called a kamal and was invented during the Middle Ages in the Arab Empire. The knots in the string represented different degrees of the altitude of Polaris. Other inventions used were the mariner's astrolabe, the crossstaff, and the quadrant. The quadrant was used to measure angles up to 90 degrees. The year 1594, John Davis invented the Davis quadrant, or the backstaff as it sometimes is called, using the quadrant as a base. This was more precise and also offered the opportunity to measure larger angles. It was so good that it became one of the most used navigational instruments from the 17th up until the 19th century. Later Pierre Vernier improved the quadrant and it became very accurate. In theory, it could give a line of position within a nautical mile of the navigator's actual position. Isaac Newton also invented the version of the quadrant, and it was on the basis of that version that John Hadley and Thomas Godfrey invented the octant. The octant was a major advancement over all previous designs. You could measure more accurately and it helped navigators a lot. There was one problem though. In order to find out longitude, you needed to know what time it was. Early in the 18th century, the astronomers had developed a method for predicting the angular distance between the moon and the sun, the planets, or selected stars. Using this technique, the navigator at sea could measure the angle between the moon and a celestial body, calculate the time at which the moon and the celestial body would be precisely at that angular distance, and then compare the time at the ship to the time back at the National Observatory. Knowing the correct time, the navigator could now determine longitude. There was only one problem. In order to measure the angular distance, you often needed a device that could measure angles that were larger than 90 degrees. The rescue came with the invention of a sextant, which basically was an improved version of an octant that could measure larger angles.